Hello, everybody. This is Love from Above with your Sibling Spirit Guides. I'm Maureen, and this is my brother.
Hey Maureen, hey everyone, this is Brian.
Gosh, we're so happy to be here. On this podcast, we share daily channelings we receive from star beings, ascended masters, mythical beings who really exist, and occasionally our ancestors. And boy, we got a doozy of a topic today, brother. Ah, doozy of a, you want to talk about what we're talking about today?
Yeah, sure. So like I said, I was in my notes to Maureen, I said we try and keep the topics positive, but there's a lot of positive elements to this, but there are some negative topics that we're gonna sort of touch on here. And so I'm just gonna jump right into it. On March 19th of this year, we got a message and from the watchers. It says, "Today we record a different aspect of your long ago history, one that has not been written in your history books. These are the meetings between the real government, also called the shadow government, and the beings from Osiris." So let me just step up. So there's a lot there. First of all, we've read some things about this that they're like supposedly uh most the governments in this world are just sort of puppets, and there's a shadow government that really is running the show. Is that what you how would you put it, Maureen?
Yeah, I mean, all of this goes back to the Illuminati. So the rumors of the Illuminati. So the Illuminati, and it's let's talk about Hollywood movies. Like, there's different Hollywood movies that have covered this as well, but the Illuminati like really runs the government, and that our choice in election is actually predetermined. Like they know who's going to win. Like the United States is about to have an election between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, and it's already pre-selected, like who's going to be the leader. And it's, this shadow government is really who runs the show, whether you live in England or whether you live in the United States or wherever you live, whether you live in Indonesia. So there's a lot of information about that. So that's not something new.
But what's so funny is like there's an old movie with Mel Gibson called Conspiracy Theory, and I think if in it he goes, yeah, I can't remember exactly. It's been a long time since I've seen it, but I think I recall like he was saying, oh, some of the sharpest reporting is from the National Enquirer. They have all the real news, and so it's like all this crazy like conspiracy stuff is actually true, which is like I would always mock people. I'm like, can you believe these conspiracy theory people? And it's actually the truth. And I know we sound crazy. Hey, I'm just the messenger here. Like again, if you told me I'd be doing a podcast talking about the shadow government, I would think, oh, there's no way because I just didn't believe in any of this stuff. So I'm just saying keep an open mind, and that's the information we're getting. But let me just go in. So the background. So this it's interesting. So there's meetings between the shadow government and these beings from Osiris. That's a planet that's located 150 light years away in the constellation Pegasus. They said this is just some background information, but that's not the channeling. So it's considered a hot Jupiter class planet, 220 times the mass of Earth, and the atmosphere has a temperature of 2,150 degrees Fahrenheit. So obviously these beings it's like a living hell. And, and these beings are, um, negative beings, obviously, that have, you know, um, that I guess these meetings on a regular basis it says these two groups are often aligned with a shared purpose. So the one question I had, we've had all these messages though that the negative entities are gone, but the shadow government is still there. I guess that's more of a question, more. And what do you think about? How,
I thought they said that because they go on to say the die has been cast and the light has won this round.
yeah.
Um, so
So you're right. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I think that and my understanding is most of these beings have left. But yeah, so I don't know what the situation is. But I'll go on with the next parts of the channeling. They say the results can be seen in the catastrophic events that occur on your government. However, this connection has been lessened due to the abandonment of your planet by many higher beings. So again, I think most of these beings have left. We shall continue. Now, this is really interesting. The central point of Las Vegas covers an unusual descent into the inner worlds. For indeed, there is always an above and a below. This patternic entrance has been humorously created. And then I like in my channeling when I used to do this, like I never expected it to be a podcast or a book, but I would be talking to Brian. I was like, Brian, is there a building called New York, and Las Vegas? If it is, that's where the entrance is. And then they go on to say, as many who run the shadow government used to live in the city of Manhattan, this was deemed an appropriate underworld connection for those who understood the real meaning of the building's intent. Isn't that funny, Brian? Oh, I guess it's not so funny, but I mean, it. What do you think about that?
I know. It is so funny. But it, if you told me that um, the negative inner world, the entrance to it is located in Vegas, of course, again, you can't think of a more appropriate space, you know what I mean? So it's so funny when you think about it. But yeah, so then go in and we'll tell them what you did next, or I'll cover the next sentence and you can chime in. But they said we would like you to close the portal, which is easily done with a flick of your mind. See the door to the interior and bar any who wish to enter who are not of a higher vibration. This shall cease the intrusion of these beings into the peaceful, luxurious, happy realms of the interior of your planet. What do you think of that?
Yeah, a strange, but I did it. I did it. So, I have I think as a writer and a reader, like a very strong visual sense. And I just, kind of went into a meditative mode and I did what they asked. So hopefully it was successful. They go on to say those above have caused much strife, wars, and calamity, which is a reflection of the internal discombobulation of the planets in the dark source. Closing this entrance portal will allow a stasis, a period of healing to occur. Those of a higher vibration may still enter with a peaceful, loving intent. Those who wish to cause harm will be repelled. Yeah. So, I did that. I forget that I did that, but I did that. So
And yeah, it's
who
interesting.
knows?
They have at other times told us to do something like this, and it's like, yeah, just a thought in your mind can have a major impact, and that's the power of thoughts, right? And I don't think, and if we've mentioned that, but I mean, it is really interesting that you can have that impact just through a single thought. But um, okay, so
We covered that.
now, oh, go
I
ahead.
was going to say we covered that like last week with the direction that we got from Thoth that he wants to do us to do a daily world peace meditation,
Yeah, right.
so the same thing, like just sending forth that energy, which I've been doing, and I just really have been enjoying my daily peace meditation, and that it really has, a power. So
And the same with
um
the Metatron and the Archangels prayer that they asked us to do on a daily basis. So that's another one.
yeah,
But
yeah.
oh, so now we get on I think the next topic. So it starts out, which is the political history, which has been greatly misrepresented by your so-called news. I love how they say stuff like that. And people, yeah, don't waste your time watching the news. It's first of all, it's not good for you to watch the negative stuff, and second of all, it's not accurate at all. But we find it curious. It says we find it curious to only few relatively unknown, unimportant people know the general truths, which should be, in our opinion, accessed by the wider population. In this, we shall attempt to rectify what has been hidden from your general population. Yeah, we're all for that. So there's nothing to fear. Again, we repeat, there is nothing to fear. There is no calamity that shall occur, such as the destruction of your ozone layer, the rising of your tides, the increased paranormal activity, which suffices to enact control and make sure these events don't occur. Um, but this is the doozy, all right. And so it says the weather is controlled by your so-called government. They have had this technology for decades. They cause trauma, which disrupts the lives for many reasons we cannot fathom. So, it's interesting as have those two major hurricanes hit, the United States, and there's been some talk in the news about how, you know, um, yeah, that was done intentionally, and there was actually all sorts of things like this. And again, I everyone thinks it sounds crazy, but it is actually true. So what are your thoughts on this, Maureen?
That's why we're doing this podcast, people. Because when that happened, and actually, as I've been traveling in Asia, I've had two typhoons that hit me. And I was like, what is going on here? And we, what is going on? And so that's the first thing that I think of when there's a calamitous event. And what is going on? Because apparently they've had the ability to control the weather for decades, not years, people, decades. And yeah, so what is the ulterior motive? And Florida, as we know, is a very important state for electoral college, and we've got an election in a few weeks. So, I don't know. But yeah, Brian and I were talking about this because that's the first thing I think about when I hear of a calamity, whether it's this or you had that ice storm
Yeah.
last year and that destroyed so much in Texas. And it's like, what is going on? What is going on? So I don't know.
So,
So hopefully bring this to the light and they can't do it anymore?
right. And just to clarify, so we talked about the shadow government. Do we think is it the shadow government that's controlling the weather, or is it the U.S. government, or do we not know, or not? I guess it doesn't really matter, but it's being
I don't think we really know,
yeah,
and I don't think
yeah,
um
yeah.
we but I do want to go back up when they said there's nothing to fear, there's nothing to fear. They say the increased paranormal activity, which suffices to enact control to make sure these events don't occur. Brian, I don't know if you've read this, but I read I know I read at least one book about this where they interviewed US soldiers and who worked at military bases where there were nuclear warheads. And they would they would talk about all the time that the nuclear warheads would be armed and flying like spaceships would come in and disarm them. And then it would take them a couple of weeks to put it back on. And this would happen again and again and again. And so, when we grew up, one of the big fears was nuclear war. And it's never going to happen. And it's kind of the same thing. It sounds like the same thing with the rising of the tides, the destruction of the ozone. They're not going to allow that to happen. So, you know, um, it does give you peace of mind, don't you think?
Yeah, and in fact, I was thinking, then why did they let it drop the atomic bomb? But I think they've admitted some of these books we read wasn't that they admit now that was a mistake letting that happen. But
Well,
yeah, I mean that
there's a lot of books about that. Dolores Cannon goes into that at length, as does the law of one. And what they said was it was a law of free will that prevented them from doing anything. But after that, that's when the whole universe got together, or the whole galactic confederation came together and said, we've got to do something about Earth. And that's where, like, people like me started. That was where they put out the call that we need help for Earth.
yeah,
And
that's right.
they stopped letting people who had lower vibrations reincarnate in Earth, and they put a call out, and that's what were called the wanderers. People who, and that's what I am. Like, I never felt like, I always felt like growing up, like, okay, there's been a huge mistake. I don't know what I'm doing here, but this is not where I belong. And it's because I'm literally not from here. And this is why I have all of these unusual gifts. And same for you, brother. And it's because we're not from here. We heard this call to come here and raise the planet's vibration to prevent this from happening again. And that's a way that they could do it where it wouldn't involve impacting on free will, because they brought in all these people of high vibrations into the planet, which sounds totally crazy, but let me tell you, there's a lot of information on this. And, like I said, Dolores Cannon, Law of One, these are two really respected sources. They didn't work with each other at all, and they both say the exact same thing.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, that's as you're watching the Weather Channel or the next storm, um it's something to think about that it's happening on purpose. So that's just crazy to think about. But um, all right. So the final topic, and we're trying to end on a positive note here. Um, it starts off, so it's that the same is true for your so-called government, and its continual expression of power through military force. So actually, I didn't include the previous section was talking about Joan of Arc and all of this, but that's for another day. So it was sort of alluding to that. But anyway, it says these expressions shall weaken as the dominant love force expands throughout the universe. Um, so the simple actions of connecting to the earth and the heavens provide a greater energetic resonance than you can imagine. These daily meditations indeed do benefit all. So um, that's you know that's the positive aspect. And then Maureen, once you go in and talk about the next subject that they gave us.
Yeah, so this is interesting. They go on to talk about Barack Obama. They said, we wish to discuss that another historical figure, Barack Obama. He was indeed planted specifically to enlighten the African American people who've been subjugated for so long. It was a resonant push to allow his presidency to exist. His presence and that of his beloved partner exploded possibilities for previously disenfranchised people to come to power. Isn't that the truth? Brian, you were there in Chicago when he was elected, right? I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
there was such a powerful energy there. I mean, I can still feel it now, resonating through my being right now. I mean, that was such a powerful moment. Do you
that's
want
right.
to talk about when you were there?
Yeah, I mean, it was, I mean, it's at Grant Park and like not right in front of him, but it was just, there was millions of people there. I don't know how many, but it was just amazing, the energy. And when they called it, it was just crazy that people were just so thrilled. So, yeah, he's an amazing, well, I guess we can say that we're big fans, but, they go on to say that we see how the present power structures are shifting to adapt to the energetic waves of love that presently dominate certain regions of your planet. The old cannot continue. Some must adapt. We urge you to consider your leaders in thoughtful prayer so that they may guide their people in a loving way in the fullest expression of the one creator. So I thought, yeah, that's a nice ending to some negative things here. We're talking shadow government and controlling the weather that, that it seems like the tide has turned and we're moving in a positive direction and they say prayers for our leaders.
Yeah, and I don't know that it's so-called negative, but it's the truth. I mean, it's
Yeah.
it's real, it's the real truth. The truth is not on the news, but this is the real truth. And we wanted to end just with a dedication and a prayer. We have listeners in Florida, we have family in Florida, we have friends in Florida. Florida is the longest place I've lived as an adult. And we just, ask all of the heavenly guides who work with us to, assist all those who are rebuilding their homes and their lives in Florida. So much love to everybody, and we'll talk to you next week.
Bye, everyone.